Chronicler's note. It seems the world insists upon conspiring against my scholarly ambitions yet again. Preparations for the Festival of Swordslight are underway here in the capital, a grand affair of banners, rites, and revelry. And naturally, Her Majesty has entrusted me with all tasks concerning print. Yes, you heard correctly. Menus, flyers, invitations, seating charts, guest lists that spiral like hydra heads the moment I strike one name. Saints preserve me. I am a royal chronicler, not an event planner. But try saying that to a queen with a vision. Still, I do my duty. Quill in hand, ink on sleeves, dignity in tatters. Yet while I drown in parchment, far more worrisome matters gather on the horizon. I have learned that the Archbishop of the Temple of Harula will attend the festivities this year. A fine, pious woman, with a rather keen sense for spiritual irregularities. And since Her Majesty will undoubtedly speak with her, there is a significant chance my Lady Armonia's recent sojourn into realms best left unmentioned will come to light. Kilhia, grant me strength. If the Archbishop learns that a priestess candidate is off on wild adventures on a different continent, much less what happened in the Abyss, well, that is left unspoken. And then there is Valoret. Dear, steadfast Valoret. Her dispatches have ceased these past days, and though I remind myself that elves walk roads both long and winding, I cannot quiet the gnawing concern within me. I pray that all is well with her, for in my experience, silence is rarely a comforting omen. So here I sit, buried in festival preparations and forebodings alike, hoping the coming days bring clarity instead of catastrophe, though with the Merry Misfits, one must always keep both possibilities at hand.
A full week passed after their descent into the shallow abyss. Each member of the company drifted back to the work that supposedly sustains respectable folk. Harmony Gold, that walking sunbeam of Harula, found herself shackled to a desk as a guild receptionist. I am told the uniform is a stiff, high-collared thing in blue and white, snug at the waist and utterly merciless on the shoulders, much like the guild's paperwork. Harmony reported home each night with the haunted stare of a veteran and the paper cuts of a scribe, insisting that this stupid uniform was slowly strangling both her circulation and her soul. Amalia, by contrast, fared far better. She slipped back into housekeeper's work, where careful order, clean spaces, and the occasional warm kitchen suited her temperament. She earned honest coin and, more importantly, enough leftover baking to share with a certain exhausted receptionist. Adrian opened his barber shop once more, trimming beards and hair while letting the routine smooth out the jagged edges of recent horrors. Barden retreated into wood and craft, carving chess pieces that suspiciously resembled his companions, though he would deny such sentimentality. Crimson Striker stalked her twilight paths as a private investigator and masked vigilante, the city's shadows whispering her name. And Brenna appeared with coin whenever coin was needed, and no one could say precisely how. After some days of this quiet, fate tugged them back together at the Adventurers Guild. It was a relatively calm morning. Only a few adventurers dotted the hall. Harmony was there not as a client, but as staff, pinning quest notices to the board and muttering darkly about the tyrannies of office policy and the cruel ban on keeping a coffee thermos at her desk. Amalia arrived first, offering a gentle pat on the shoulder and, more importantly, a small bag of leftover cookies. That tiny kindness nearly broke the poor receptionist. Harmony swung from bleak despair to hopeful pleading in an instant, clinging to Amalia as if the woman were an official declaration of adventure time. Soon, Barden, Adrian, and Brenna filtered in. Reports had reached the guild that simple quests were going awry, adventurers injured on routine work, and longtime clients quietly taking their business elsewhere. The quest board, overfull with notices, reflected the mounting unease. As the Misfits scanned the options, rats in mansions, goblins with stolen boots, herbs in the wild, sewer infestations, and the like, one posting caught Harmony's eye. Trouble at the cemetery near the forest, marked with weary emphasis as again.
That one word might as well have been a summoning circle. Harmony, who had spent her filing hours reading through old reports, declared the cemetery job exciting, her eyes lighting with the particular madness one sees in people who have stacked too many forms in one sitting. Brenna, upon hearing the words graveyard and undead, expressed her thoughts with a disgusted sigh that could have withered ivy. Amalia, however, quietly reminded them that missing people meant someone needed help, and that was enough. Adrian, recalling past brushes with the unnatural, admitted a grim sort of familiarity with such places. Barden, more practical, simply preferred this to another sewer explosion. Between Harmony's enthusiasm and everyone else's resigned agreement, the decision was made. The Misfits would once again investigate the dead, who refused to stay politely still. Preparations took the rest of the morning. Barden picked up life grass, Adrian closed his shop. Amalia and Harmony secured what they needed. Brenna arrived in full combat gear, muttering about the 5,000 gamels she still needed for her own mysterious goals. Somewhere in the rafters, I imagine the gods rolled their dice and smiled. They left the city and followed the road northward, passing a familiar farmstead. The young woman and her father, those they had once escorted to safety, were at work in the fields, and the girl waved vigorously as the party passed. Amalia and Barden waved back. Adrian smiled. Harmony waved excitedly and yelled that the
cheese is working,
causing Brenna to glower and mumble under her breath while looking groundward. Then they saw it. A bank of thick, unnatural fog stretched ahead, rolling in from the forest and curling around the cemetery like a living thing. It reached almost to the watchtowers of the city walls, blotting out the morning sun until day felt perilously close to night. Barden did not like the look of it. Adrian, on the other hand, found the dimness pleasantly comfortable on his skin, which tells you more about Adrian than I ever could. Within the fog, the cemetery showed its bones, gravestones rising in vague silhouettes, the dark outline of the chapel, and a once flowing fountain now dried to stone, with splashes of blood staining its basin. The air was cold and wet, clinging to clothes and nerves alike. Amalia, ever observant, checked for trails of blood or tracks. Adrian scanned the ground and found 2 sets of recent footprints, heavier than most, as though armored figures had marched toward the chapel not long before. While the others examined the scene with varying degrees of caution, Harmony wandered among the gravestones, murmuring to herself. For one raised with family tombs and carefully tended crypts, this simple cemetery was both strange and fascinating. She mused aloud about hidden stairways under graves, as in the old stories, and how efficiently common folk must bury their dead. And then, of course, she touched a gravestone. The earth split with a terrible familiarity. A withered hand shot out of the soil, claws raking her ankle and seizing her leg. Harmony shrieked, tried to fling herself clear, and protested,
I wasn't scouting, I promise.
The nearby grave burst as well, expelling a dried corpse into the fog. Brenna groaned that this felt distressingly like the last time something fell over in a haunted place, because Harmony just had to poke it. Adrian, long past surprise, simply cursed and moved closer. Barden drew steel and ran, while Amalia flinched at the confirmation that, yes, undead were indeed involved. Before the undead could drag Harmony down, a crimson blur cut through the mist,
A red greave slammed into the corpse's arm, kicking it away from Harmony's leg. A gauntleted hand caught Harmony by the small of her back, steadying her before she could topple head first into an open grave.
Crimson Striker had arrived. The masked woman stood there in upgraded armor, sharp as a drawn blade against the rotten stillness of the graveyard.
You certainly looked like you were scouting.
She remarked dryly. Harmony's face lit up in mingled relief and admiration. Brenna made a flat observation about their group's unnatural attraction to weirdness, while Stryker, entirely unbothered, admitted she had come late, but not too late. Around them, the corpses clawed themselves fully free, earth flying as they shambled upright. The crow watched from its headstone, far too intent to be natural. Somewhere beneath the fog, 2 heavy sets of footprints waited to explain themselves, if their owners still drew breath. Weapons left their sheaths. Prayers and curses alike rose into the mist. And so, in the wet chill of a graveyard that had already seen too much, the Merry Misfits once again found themselves standing between the darkness and those who would rather remain peacefully in their beds.
Ah, yes. This chapter of the Misfits Chronicle is a curious thing. A pause between storms. The week of rest reveals much about who they are when swords are sheathed and spells are spent. We see them as workers, as citizens, as people clinging to ordinary rhythms. Harmony's descent into clerical despair, that miserable uniform and its tyranny of buttons, sets the tone. The brave priestess who once faced demons now trembles before a filing cabinet. The irony writes itself. Amalia's gentle diligence, Adrian's quiet professionalism, Barden's creative solitude, all are mirrors of recovery. They show how adventurers patch their spirits between chaos, how they reach for normalcy that never quite fits. Even Brenna's unexplained wealth becomes a kind of mystery that sustains her character. She exists between trust and danger, both ally and enigma. And Stryker's absence, until the fog rolls in, reminds us that some guardians dwell best in the margins. When the party reunites at the guild, the tone shifts. Bureaucracy gives way to camaraderie, and the humor that defines the Misfits resurfaces. Harmony's wild longing for adventure, her dramatic plea to escape paperwork, is as much tragedy as comedy. The cemetery quest, marked again, is a perfect punchline to their history. It is the world itself winking at them, saying, "You never truly rest." The fog, the footprints, the undead hand clawing up from the dirt, these are the Misfits' natural element. The mundane could never hold them for long. And when Stryker steps through the mist to save Harmony, it is both a rescue and a ritual. The circle is complete, the team restored. If there is a moral here, dear listeners, it is this. Even when they try to live ordinary lives, the Merry Misfits belong to legend, not ledgers. The world will always find a way to drag them back into the tale.